And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us, and one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it, and that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
I'd like to take this time to welcome my guest tonight, Shadoe. Thanks for coming on here and talking with me.
Thank you for having me.
Would you like to let the audience know a little bit about yourself before we get into it?
I'm from Oklahoma. I work in law enforcement. I grew up in the woods. It's kind of what I've done my whole life. I'm actually getting ready at this weekend to go hunting in the same area where my story takes place. The woods are just very big to me, and other than that, in my downtime, I'm on vacation this week, so I play a lot of video games and I just kind of just relax. I've got younger kids, so I spend time with them when I can, and I just kind of try to just live the best life I can.
No, I understand that. Well, we originally got connected because you said you had a couple of experiences, and one was with like a Dogman. So if you would like to discuss that, I can turn it over to you and you can tell the story, and once you're done, I'll ask some questions if I got any for you.
Okay. So there was 2 encounters that happened. They both happened in 2018. The first one happened in roughly August, and then the second one happened in deer season in November, right about this time. So where my encounter takes place, if anybody's familiar with Oklahoma, I mean, you can map it and you can Google it. I mean, there's stories for days. The location that this happened, they call it the Jack Fort Mountains. If you know where the city of McAllister is, you go straight east of McAllister. There's a little town called Hartshorn, and you go straight south of it, and you go back into the areas, and it goes into the Jack Fort Mountains. And you can loop around. You can keep going all the way through, and it'll come out near like Sardis Lake, the Clayton area. You can go up to Tallahena, where like the Kiamishi Mountains are. And so the area that this happened in, one of my best friends, his family owns a farm on several hundred acres. And, they have a cabin out there. And, a little miniature farm. They used to have cattle. They don't now. It's just kind of like an old barn. He still has the cabin, and they put another cabin in since. And then you go like from the cabin, you go straight down, and it goes into like a big field. We call it the field. And in the middle of the field is kind of open, and then the land kind of takes off from each side, and the cabin is uphill from the field. And, if you're going to take big vehicles, if you're moving stuff, you got to actually go out around on the main road around to the field. But you could take like ATVs and stuff like that down the back trails or walk down. So the Jack Fort Mountains are like notorious for an area like you don't go into. You do not go back there with any intentions other than your own. Like it's kind of the best way to describe it. It's almost like cabin in the woods kind of stuff. Like there's talks of a helicopter that got shot down in the 70s and 80s back when the drug rings were real big. I mean, my friend's farm, the closest neighbor on either side of him is almost 5 miles. I mean, it's just one of them, you're secluded. And like to get to the farm, once you leave, the second you go out of Hartshorn, you drive over 30 miles at no faster than 30 miles an hour. And like once you get 2 miles out of town, you're just done. Cell signal wise, it's nothing but just old gravel roads all the way to where you're going. And I mean, like I said, this is now, when I say this, when I tell this story, people will tell me, oh, we go, was it this? Was it this? Well, when this happened, him and I were the only two out there until we called some of our friends. And his grandpa comes out there to, feed. At the time, he came out there to feed cattle. But his grandpa had already been out there. This happened roughly between, I'd say, 1 in the afternoon to somewhere about 4. And it was a super nice day. It was real sunny, real good weather. And what we were doing, we were setting up deer feeders. We were kind of, setting up deer feeders early, getting stuff kind of set up, surveying the land, just kind of getting an early start on everything. So, people will ask me if what I saw or what could have happened would have been like his grandpa or somebody playing a trick on us. And I'm telling you right now, anybody that knows Oklahoma and knows like these backwood Oklahoma areas, that's not something that happens. The fact that somebody running around in a costume or something, it's not going to happen because you'll get shot. This is one of the few states, Oklahoma, Texas, one of these southern states where you just like playing practical jokes is one of them high risk, very low reward kind of scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
So we're setting up the deer feeders and stuff, and we're on the field. And we took the long way around because we had his truck. At the time, he had like a mid-90s model Ford, an old Ford. And we're setting up the deer feeders and stuff. And for people that don't know or do know anything about guns, I had 2 very large rifles in the truck. I had a 45-70, which shoots a very large shell. And I had an AR-10 that shoots a 308 shell, which is, significantly bigger than the normal AR-15, that shoots the 256 or 2, and so as we're setting the feeder up, we're big coyote hunters. There's a lot of problems in Oklahoma with coyotes and wild pigs and stuff, so they're kind of just free game. And we like to hunt coyotes. And, I do apologize for any viewers that are sensitive when it comes to, the death of animals and stuff. I apologize. But that's just kind of what we do here. So I am apologizing in advance. And my buddy looks at me and says, "Hey, you want to go down the creek bed and follow the trail around and see if we can't find a rabbit or a squirrel or something, and we can kill it and use it for bait." I'm like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And so when you go to like the north side of the field, you go in and you go down like a ravine, especially just picture a big dried up creek/river, and it wraps and turns and winds and winds and winds for several hundreds and hundreds of yards. And it'll come right back to the other side of the field, like almost right back by the truck. And, it's a really good walk. You go out there, just enjoy nature. And obviously for, killing a rabbit or a squirrel or something, I wasn't going to grab one of those 2 big guns because, you shoot a rabbit or a squirrel with one of them, there ain't going to be nothing left to use for bait. And so I didn't even grab a gun out of the truck. And my buddy, he had a little 20-gauge shotgun with bird shot in it. So, it's not a very powerful shell. And we go when we get in the ravine. And like I said, it's gorgeous day. It's real gorgeous. It's 80s to 90s. And I remember looking up, blue skies, clear, hardly any clouds in the sky. Just a super nice day. And so I do want to let you know, though, as we're in this like ravine, we're standing in the middle of it because, like I said, it's a dried up creek, and the woods are on both sides of us, and they're thick. I mean, they're thick, 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 thick woods. So if the trees would have been higher and like over, it would have been pitch black in there. That's how thick the woods were. If the trees would have been over us, you wouldn't even seen sunlight. And we take off and we're walking, and it's going good. There's a lot of, you can hear animals everywhere. Kind of, we're looking, trying to find something. We don't really see nothing, but the woods are alive. The woods are active. Everything's going very well. And I guess my first sign that I should have known something was weird or something was off was how quiet the woods got. That should have been like my first like knowing because growing up in the woods, there I've been in several situations, but nothing like what was about to happen. But there's always times when if there was like a predator around,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that was kind of the start of it. Is how silent the woods got. And anybody that hunts or anything like that, or just does nature hikes and stuff like that, everybody kind of knows that as you're walking through the woods, you're trying to be as careful as possible, as quiet as possible, so you don't alert what's around you. And everybody knows that a predator is going to do the same. A predator is going to walk as carefully as it can so it don't alert its prey, and prey will do the same. Deer, rabbits, squirrels, all those nature little critters, they're going to do the exact same. They're going to try to be as careful as they can. So, unless something's just trying to be heard, you ain't going to really hear it. And everything tries to be as careful as it can. Most of the time when you hunt, you sit still. That's how you find stuff. I mean, squirrels and rabbits, what we were looking for, you can get, lucky as you're walking through. They'll be in the trees or rabbits running on the ground, stuff like that. But something got in behind me. So I'm on the left and my buddy's on the right. And something got in behind me to my left. And it wasn't super far back, but I would say, it wasn't, it was maybe probably 5 feet away from me to the left, it probably 20, 30 feet back. And it is just crushing through the woods. You could hear it. It was moving heavy. You could just tell it didn't have a care in the world. You could hear it smacking tree limbs out of the way, stomping on tree limbs. It was just cruising. I mean, that's just the best way to describe it. It was just cruising through there. It didn't give a dang it didn't give a dang that we were there or we heard it. And we kept walking, and this thing's still behind us. And my buddy looks at me, and that's when obviously we were whispering, but he goes, "Is that on? Is that on two legs?" And I'm like, "Well, it sure as hell sounds like it's on two legs," but we didn't think nothing of it. At this point we weren't scared. We're just, it's whatever it is, it's whatever, blah blah blah. Let's just keep going. And we keep going, and this thing, like I said, is just trudging behind us. Just not a care in the world. But whatever it is, you can just tell it's loud, it's heavy, and like I said, it just don't care. And it didn't seem like no time because we just kept walking. And about that time, it just took off. It just shot. And it came from, I'd say, probably 30 feet back, and it just shot anywhere between 5 and 15 feet in front of us. And it stopped moving, so we stopped. And that's when it stepped out. And it came down from the left. It stepped down into the ravine. And it walked, and it squared up with him and I. And it turned, and it faced us, and it like cocked its head, and it looked at him. It kind of stood up, rolled its shoulders, and it cocked its head, and it looked at me, and it stood back up, kind of rolled its shoulders, and it just stared. I'm talking, and its ears. The ears are like, for a lot of people, there's a lot of different things they'll remember about these, but the ears is what I'll never get over. The ears just stood straight up like a mixture between bat ears and Doberman Pinscher ears. And the ears were just flickering, like it's just listening for everything. And it stood there, and like I said, this thing is no farther than 15 feet from me. So I got a real good look at it. And almost as if it was like trying to smile, it like bared its teeth. And it had big old canines on it. Definitely the kind of teeth, you don't want to get into it with. And I don't remember any sounds, like any grunts or growls. I just kind of, I remember just getting a good look at it. And like I said, besides it baring its teeth, it didn't, make no like gestures towards us, no lunging motions. It just kind of stood there and stared. And then almost as if nothing, it turns and it goes back up into the woods on the right side. And before I could say, "Did you see that?" my buddy picks up that shotgun and cocks it. And I just kind of grabbed the barrel of the gun, and I start putting it down. because that gun that he has is not going to do anything to that thing that was just in front of us. I can promise you. I still, in my mind at this time, don't know what this thing was as we're sitting there watching it, looking at it. But I can promise you a 20 gauge shotgun with birdshot is just going to piss it off. And so, one thing that I'm very thankful for that I use in my job now, and I use anytime I use a lot in life, is my grandpa and my dad. Some big things that they taught me is very important is never show fear, because if you show fear, it's over. Whatever situation you're in, you've already lost. And I was absolutely terrified. I'm not going to lie to anybody. If you say that you saw this and you was 15 feet from it and you said you weren't scared, you're lying. And I was absolutely terrified. And I'll be honest with you, I'm surprised I didn't piss myself. But I knew that I couldn't act scared, and I knew that I couldn't let my buddy act scared. I knew that we just needed to get back to the truck. Because in my mind, I've got a couple howitzers in the truck, and if I can get a hold of one of them, I feel like I'm going to be fine. That's what's going through my mind. I'm like, man, if I get one of them big guns, I ain't going to be scared of anything at that point, because my gun is bigger than them canines. That's what I'm thinking. And so we just start walking, and this thing walks directly beside us on the right side, but just far enough in the woods where you can't really see it, but you know it's there, and it just walks right beside us the whole time. Well, finally we get to the clearing, kind of where it opens, and you can see the truck, and the truck's probably 60, 70 feet away. It's a good little distance. And my buddy is actually way more athletic than me. I'm short and chunky, but I've always been kind of quick for my size. And when you want to talk about it getting real, this is when it got real for me. Is my buddy looked at me and he said, "Get to the truck, get one of them guns." He said, "You kill this thing." He said, "If it's killing me, you shoot me in the head and then you kill it." And you want to talk about real. Your best friend since third grade, like best friends of this day, basically told you, like, this is what, make sure that, this thing dies, and if it's hurting me, you just kill me. Like, don't make me suffer. And that's when, like, if anything wasn't real yet, it was real. Everything was 100% go. I just kind of knew. And you talk about getting even more scared, but you knew you had to make a decision. You had to be strong in the moment. And I just took off. It just took off as fast as I could go. And like I said, he had a mid to late, 90s model Ford, and so it had the old windows, old crank windows. And thankfully, we had them down that day. And I just reached through, and I didn't care what I grabbed, because I knew whatever I grabbed was going to be good. And almost as like a gift, I felt the pistol grip to that AR-10. And, obviously I don't hunt with a big magazine in it, but I have a big magazine for it. And at the time I had a 30 round magazine with it. And I had it in the gun. And I pulled that AR-10 out of the truck as I'm coming around. I rack the action, and I turn and I look, and I just see my buddy just standing there pointing that shotgun in the woods. Nothing. And this thing didn't jump out on him or nothing. It's just my buddy standing there. And so I go up there, and I grab him by the shoulder, and I get him back to the truck. And obviously we go back around. We get in the truck, and we'll go back to the cabin. And I'm probably, in my mind, like, we're just gonna get our crap. We're gonna get out of here. And he's, I'm a very goofy guy. I love to joke around. I'm real silly. I'm always talking. I'm just me. And he's real talkative. Not as talkative as me, but he's real talkative. And we were both just sitting there in silence as we're on the main road. We're heading back to the cabin. And he breaks the silence first. And he goes, "Shadoe, was that a werewolf?" And I'm like, "Well, werewolves ain't real, but it sure as hell looks like one." I said, "What do you want to do?" he said, well, we're going to kill it. I said, we're going to what? So you can just picture a couple of guys in their early 20s, with something, straight out of a Hollywood movie in the middle of nowhere with cell signal, how crazy this could get looking back on it. And I'm like, well, how are we going to kill it? He goes, we'll call 2 of our buddies. We'll tell them we saw a bear. Then when they get out here, we'll tell them the truth. We'll tell them everything. We're going to hunt this thing down. And we're going to kill it. I'm like, well, all right. And so we call 2 of our buddies. And when we get out there, we tell them straight up everything. We didn't hide a detail. And one of them just laughed. I can still picture him laughing at us to this day. He just laughed and laughed. He almost fell on the ground. I mean, he called us everything in the book. He's like, y'all are so stupid. But my other buddy that came, he has hunted all over the world. He's hunted in several continents. He's hunted in almost all 50 states. He's been all over the world hunting. And he didn't say a word. It's just like he knew. He knew we weren't lying to him. I don't know if he'd seen this thing before or seen something like it. And to this day, me and him still haven't had a conversation about it, which is crazy. But he just knew. So we had at the time we had a Can-Am, a little side-by-side 4-seater. We were loading it up. And it's starting to get dark. So here's where, like I said, you got 4 idiots with high-powered rifles about to go hunt something straight out of a movie in the middle of nowhere, no cell signal, and it's getting dark. So the fact that I'm still sitting here telling you this story right now is beyond belief, because everything could have went horribly wrong. And I know that, and I'm sure looking back, we all know that, but it's starting to get dark, and this next part, I'll never be able, no matter how long I live, I'll never be able to get this image out of my head until the day I die. Down in the field, we could hear coyotes. And coyotes make distinctive sounds, and you can tell when they're hunting something, or when they're mating, or when they're playing, or you can just tell by the sounds they make what they're doing. And whatever this little pack of coyotes were doing was not good for them. You could hear the distress. They were fighting something, and the way it sounded like they were losing. So, we get in the Can-Am, we got spotlights ready. There's still a little daylight left, not much. And we speed down there. We just speed down to the field. And when we get there, it was just, oh, shit. I'm sorry. The only way I could describe it, just pure slaughter. Picture the goriest horror film that you can think of, and then it's real. I mean, there was just, I would say, anywhere between 5 and 10, up to maybe 12 coyotes. I couldn't tell you an exact number. And they were just slaughtered. I'm talking just pieces, just guts, blood, entrails, eyes, noses, teeth, just a straight slaughter. One of them literally looked like it had jumped and something had caught it in midair and pulled it in half like an accordion and dropped it. And I'll never forget I'll just never forget seeing those dead coyotes. And it was so gory. If we didn't know if you didn't know they were coyotes, it'd have been hard to tell, because they were tore up. So we get in the Can-Am and we start going down trails in the woods. And it's dark now. And I'm a firm believer that any creature on this earth, including mainly us as humans, come with a sixth sense. We just know, we have the ability to almost know if something or someone is looking at us. You know, like if you wake up in the middle of the night, and one of your family members or girlfriend, wife, kids are looking at you, you just wake up. You just know because they're looking at you. You just feel it. You just always get that feeling. And that's kind of the feeling that I got the whole time we were going through them trails. And, we're spotlighting, we're looking up in the woods, we're looking up in the treetops, and we're looking around. And what's crazy, though, is it felt like something was right there beside us and with us the whole time. But unlike earlier when we'd seen it, we never heard it, or I never saw it again that evening. But you just like knew it was there. And it was just crazy. And then the crazy part is when we drove back out, all them dead coyotes were gone. The only thing that was there was blood. Just big spots of blood. Everything was gone. So that was just crazy. It was just one of the craziest things that's ever happened. And that's the end of the first one. Nothing else happened. We all kind of just went back up to the cabin. We kind of talked about what happened, then we kind of just went out. And see, my best friend, he still went out there daily, because they had cattle time, and that's kind of like his favorite spot. And I live, I don't live super close to there, so I would only come down when I could come down. But he went back out there. He went back out there the next day, and see, nothing happened. He had gone out there. We played video games together. We talked on the phone, and nothing had happened. Nothing weird had happened. It seemed like everything was just normal, almost like it was just a figment of our imaginations. Well, it's getting close to rifle season, and it's the day before the opening day, so we're going to go out there, we're going to hunt. Now, it's not like I said, it's November now. Weather's starting to get cold. It's dark real early. And we're in the cabin, and we're playing video games in the cabin. And I have to use the bathroom. There's no plumbing in the cabin. There's, if you got to go really bad, they have like an outhouse. And then, obviously, you just go right around if you got to just, And so I go to the side of the cabin, and I'm taking a leak. And behind the cabin is like a fence. And around the other side of the fence, it's still daylight. There's probably about maybe an hour-ish, a little less than an hour of daylight left. You can still see real good, though. And around the other side of the cabin is this fence. And around the other side of the fence, they call it the hog pasture. Used to keep hogs and stuff there. They'd bring cattle in to feed them there. And around the other side of the hog pasture is where the woods take off. The woods will take off, all woods, and you got this big slope where it goes downhill to the field. So right on the other side of the hog pasture is woods. I don't know what possessed me, but I just happened to look up. And sure as hell, right there on the other side of the hog pasture, like standing behind a tree with like both its hands around the tree, like kind of leaned out looking at me, is what it looked just like this creature we'd seen. And if it wasn't the same one, it looked identical. And I got a good look at it. I mean, even though it was, several hundred feet away, I could clearly tell what it was. Because, set beside that, standing kind of behind that tree, kind of hanging out behind that tree, it was big. So, I could see it. And I didn't say anything. I just kind of zipped my pants up and walked back in. And I didn't say a word. Didn't say a word. I just picked up my controller, started playing again. And in the cabin, there's a window that faces out straight to where I was looking and straight to where this creature was. Well, I didn't think nothing about it. And by the time my buddy pauses the game, and he goes, "I'm getting a deer tomorrow." And he said, he said, I'm not going to repeat exactly what he said, but he basically said, that fairy tale sucker can come sit in the tree stand with me for all I care. Stand with me. Because I want to get a deer tomorrow, no matter what. And I just kind of laughed, and we just kind of went about our night. Well, see, I'm a very lazy hunter. I have no problem admitting my laziness. I'll sleep till daylight. I'll sleep in. I'll get up. And I'll romp around the woods. And if I kill something, cool. If I don't, cool. And my buddy is super committed. Like he's up before dawn. He's down the stand. He's ready to go. And his stand at the time, kind of to paint the picture, his stand was this huge cedar tree that he had cut the limbs on the very bottom out of. He had put like a little piece of plywood and a chair right by the base of the tree. And he stacked them limbs back, and it looked natural. So, I mean, almost even to the human eye, it looked like a cedar tree. So obviously, it fooled most animals. It was one of the best looking hunting blinds I've ever seen, and especially to be basically man made with just a piece of plywood and a steel folding chair. It's pretty impressive. And that morning, he was hunting with a 30-30. And for anybody that don't know, it's a lever action like a cowboy gun, like a Western gun. And, obviously, with the limits and stuff and the laws, you're only supposed to have 3 shells in it. So that's all he had. And I get woken up, and I hear boom. I hear the rifle crack, and it wakes me up. I'm like, oh, well, good. He got one. I'm going to spend the day out here. And by that time, I hear boom, boom, just back to back. I'm like, what in God's name is he doing down there? I mean, because he's really accurate with a rifle. I don't imagine that he would miss. So I'm like, I don't know what he's doing down there. He's terrorizing the deer population, probably. And it didn't seem like no time because he's super athletic. He just comes barging in the door. He's like, oh my God, it's back. Get the gun. Come on, you got come in. He's just belligerent. And when I say get the gun, it's a weapon that we carry. It's my grandpa's, and we when we're out in the woods, one of us carries it to this day. It's a 1972 Remington 870 12-gauge shotgun that shoots a 3.5-inch shell. It's a super, super powerful gun. And you should see me because I've got T-Rex arms, so you should see me carry this mammoth of a gun through the woods. It's hilarious. And I load it slug, buckshot. And the reason why I do that is because I shoot a slug first because a slug hits hard. And if something's coming right at me, that slug's going to hit it hard, punch it, and make it think about what it's doing. And then when I cock the shell, when I chamber another round and I shoot buckshot's going to start eating flesh. It's going to start chewing meat away. So when that's kind of how you think of it. You shoot the slug, so you punch, tear, punch, tear, punch, tear. And it had a big, long 8-round tube on it. So that's 4 slugs, 4 buckshots. And in my mind, anything of man, myth, or beast, runs into the end of this thing is not in for a good day. And I'm sitting there, I'm still half asleep. I've got sleeping pants on, and I'm fumbling. I'm dropping shells, trying to get shells into this gun. He's telling me what happened. So basically, he's sitting in this stand. He's watching out. And this thing crawls around the side of the tree. And it crawls up in the deal with him. Now, mind you, like I said tree stand earlier. I said it wrong. I meant to say blind. He's sitting 100% on the ground. He's just inside a tree, but he's on the ground. And this thing crawls right up to him, and it crawls right between his legs, and it puts its head in his lap and looks up at him. And he was so scared he fired his gun in the air. And about that time, he says, I think I shot it. And I said, what? And I woke up quick. And I started getting shells into that gun. There was no more half asleep, dropping shells. I was getting shells into that gun. Because that's when I started thinking, injured, angry, pissed off predator. And seeing what this thing is, and the fact that he might have shot it, and he don't know if it's dead, and it's probably not going to, prospects are not in our favor at that moment. So basically, as what happens, we get down to the stand, and what happens is he shoots once in the air, and this thing goes out. It runs out of the tree, and it takes off to the left. And where it takes off running is almost 2 trees I'd say about 8 feet apart, and those two trees basically start a trail. And as this thing's running away, he fires once at it, fires twice at it. And it just disappears into the trail. Well, I start thinking, okay, well, he fired once in the air, so that's one shell. And I get to looking at those two trees where this thing ran between. And sure as hell, on that left tree, I see a bullet hole. It looks right about the size of a 30-30. I'm like, okay, well, he shoots once in the air. He shoots the tree. So I've got one shell that's missing. He might have actually shot this thing. I said, so it went down this trail, right? And he goes, yeah. And daylight's coming pretty good now. You can see pretty good. I said, all right. And I fucking racked that shotgun real good. Made sure that, obviously, that whatever was down there heard that I had, ooh, big scary gun, at the time, that's what you think, Rack the shotgun, let whatever it is know. It didn't care, I'm sure. And I told him, I said, you stand right here and wait. I'm going to go down this trail. I'm going to see what I can see. If you hear anything, go. If I scream, if I make any noise, anything, you just get the hell out of here and call somebody. I said, it's already got me. It's probably got the shotgun away from me, beating me with it like it's a stick. I said, just go. So I start walking down this trail. And I didn't get very far at all. And I see blood. And I start seeing a blood trail. I'm like, well, holy cow, he shot this thing. And as I'm going farther, this blood trail is getting thicker and thicker and thicker, and it's getting soupier and soupier and soupier and wider and thicker, and it's becoming a hell of a blood trail. Like almost like dragging a dead body blood trail. Like it's a good one. And I start thinking, well, what bleeds like this? And I start thinking, and immediately my mind goes to an artery or the head, because the head on any creature bleeds like a son of a bitch. And especially, like us, you get a cut above your eye or something, it's going to bleed like you're dead. And this blood trail, it's going. I probably fallen at 30, 40 feet already. So it's a good blood trail. And I started thinking, he hit this thing in the back of the head. I'm about to walk up on this thing laying there dead. And then what? Like, what's my next step? And I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell. To this day, I couldn't tell you what I would have done, what we would have done. But almost as if nothing, this blood trail just ends. It just ends. And I look down on the right side, and there's like a little muddy area, and it looked like there was a big scoop of mud missing. Like something with just big old, like almost like a big clawed hand or something, reached down and scooped up mud. And then on the left side, there was a chunk of meat. And I reached down and I picked up that chunk of meat, and I'll be damned if the head of that 30-30 shell wasn't in that chunk of meat. And so whatever this thing was, I didn't watch it happen, but just putting two and two together, whatever this thing was smart enough to realize it had been shot and it was hurt, and it got a comfortable distance away from what it thought hurt it, and it pulled out this bullet, and then from what I can gather, probably used the mud and packed its wound. And I basically took that chunk of meat back out and showed him what I showed him, and we got out of there. And this was in 2018, and that was it. Nothing has happened. I'm literally going there this weekend, and nothing has happened since. And some crazy things is like, I'll tell you one thing: we don't hunt on the ground anymore. We hunt in the tree stand about 30 feet in the air now. And some weird things though is besides those coyotes, we never found no missing cattle. We never found no dead animals. We never found none of the horses were messed with. And so like the only thing that like could make me rationalize this was that it was just a few things. Is I think it was young. I think it was young and curious. And then I think it was just moving through because this was 2018, 2025 now, and we have. And I mean, he moved states for a couple years, but he's back now. And besides that, I mean, he's out there almost every day. And I mean, I've been out there several times since then, and nothing. But that's the end of my 2 encounters.
Do you think, I was thinking about this when you said it, that this thing was the same one you've seen twice? Did you think it followed you back?
What do you mean by followed me back where?
When you seen it the first time, and then you said you're outside by the barn, you said you're taking a leak, and you'd saw something that looked just like it again. Do you think it was the same one?
I couldn't tell you because I mean, like, I saw it from a distance, and the first one I saw wasn't. That's why I said I think it was young because it wasn't super big. Like when you hear other people tell these stories, these things are 8, 9, 10 feet tall and huge. This thing was super realistic looking. This thing was only at its tallest 6'5", 6'6".
Mm-hmm.
It was between 6'1" and 6'6", and it didn't look like it weighed maybe more than 230, 240. It was real healthy looking, but it wasn't like, Hollywood muscly. It wasn't real like just jacked. It was just a good look, just a good healthy looking creature. It was very well built, but it wasn't, just massive. So that's why I think it was a younger one. But one thing that could lead me to believe there was a couple of them is the one that I saw in the tree. It's hard to tell because the tree was a good distance away, but it looked like it was pretty good. Its head looking out was pretty good distance up on the tree. So the second one I saw could have been taller. But as far as like following us back from the field to where we saw it to the cabin is only less than a half a mile. It's all in one big area. So it wouldn't have been nothing for that thing to follow the sound of, just us bringing the trucks and stuff up because it's all one big area.
Right. I just was thinking when you were talking about it, I was like, because I've heard from people before that when they've encountered something, they say these things tend to follow them. And I don't know how true that is, but I interviewed someone last year and they said that they saw one in an area and then they lived a few miles away and this thing ended up being out on their property. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's super believable, but it would have been nothing for this thing to follow us, because where we went from the field, even driving the vehicle back up to the cabin is, it's less than a half a mile drive. And like I said, you could take the trails from the cabin straight to the field, and it's, maybe a quarter mile walk, and so that thing, it would have been nothing for it to just been romping around the woods and come up to the cabin, especially, because that's where the cattle and stuff are, and that's where the cabin is with the electricity and all the lights and stuff on.
This never made you feel like you're ever afraid to go back out there?
It took me, I'm not going to lie, I mean, it took a little bit right off the rip. I definitely didn't go back like the next day.
Right.
But I mean, to say I wasn't scared would be lying. Like, why, there's no need to come on this show or, and lie about anything. Say I was scared is, that's so truthful because I was absolutely terrified. I still, there's times I've had nightmares about it, like super realistic nightmares. And I mean, even though I still go back out there, I'm going back out there this weekend. Like it's always going to be, especially this being several years ago, that's kind of a fear that never like lets you go. Almost like a scar, like you get in a car wreck or you have something bad happen. You're always going to remember it. But one of them, like you can't let it like completely stop you. Because it did. It slowed me down for a little bit. Like I mean, it scared the piss out of me. I definitely don't. I'm like I said to any viewers that that just don't like violence and stuff like that. I apologize, but I mean, I can't go in the woods now without a gun. Right. I can tell you that. I'm just being honest with you, just man to man. I don't think that makes me any weaker. I don't think that makes me anything. But I mean, if you saw what I saw, and then you saw the coyotes. I mean, did this thing hurt us? Absolutely not. Could it be wrong that we wanted to kill it and try to kill it? Yeah, it could be. But we're early 20 at the time. We were early 20s. We were scared shitless, and we just did what we could to protect ourselves. And I'm going to tell you straight up, if I'm in the woods and this thing is, I run into this thing and I got a gun on me, and I think I ain't going to go home and see my kids. And, and my woman, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to go home. It's me. I have that mindset. It's me or it. And but obviously, hunting, I've killed several animals throughout the years because that's what hunters do. And like I said, I'm sorry for sensitive viewers, but I don't have problems taking the life of an animal. But I don't just, like I said, if I'm hunting, I'm not just going out of my way to just go kill stuff to kill stuff.
Right.
Well, obviously coyotes and pigs, but they're considered a nuisance. And then obviously I know, killing a squirrel or killing a rabbit and using it as bait might sound rough, but when they're in season, there's nothing wrong with doing it. And I just, it's one of them deals. Like if I had to shoot this thing, I would. But yeah, I was absolutely terrified, and it definitely messed with my hunting experience for a little while.
Because this thing was so close when you originally seen it, you said it was like 15 feet away. It obviously could have easily got you if it wanted to. So do you think it was more or less just there to let you know that you're in its area? Because it didn't try and attack you.
Well, that's why I think in my mind, especially hearing other people's stories, that's why I think this one was so young. I think this one was more or less just curious, because I've heard stories where, these things almost kind of like, what people say Sasquatches do. They'll knock a tree down or they'll roar at you or growl at you. This thing made no noises. It almost like, it just was wanting to see what we were. Because it never made no threatening motions. That's the best way I can describe it.
Mm-hmm.
It basically just stood still. Like I said, it bared its teeth, but like in my mind, even when it bared its teeth, it wasn't like a threatening baring of its teeth. Almost like it was trying to smile at us. Like I said, I feel like I said, and this thing wasn't overly big, like other people say they are. So I almost feel like it was just curious. I feel like if it was trying to run us off, I feel like if it was trying to run us off, it would have made some kind of noise, or we would have seen it way sooner. But then also, with the coyotes, I don't know if it was that same one that did that to them coyotes. I can tell you that right now, because that was pretty gruesome. The thing that I saw, I don't know if it. I feel like if it was going to do that to them coyotes, it had done it to us. So maybe the coyotes were just actually on its area or messing with its food or something, and it just let them know what was up.
Or the coyotes were its food.
Well, you would think that, but like I said, as slaughtered as them were, it almost didn't seem like it was eating them.
Right.
It could have ate them because, like I said, when we came back out of the woods, they were gone. So it could have decided to eat them, but it's just one of them. I feel like that right there could have been a territorial thing right there, with how it messed them up. It messed them up, almost like when you kill a coyote, you hang it on the fence for the other coyotes to see, so they know not to come back around. That's kind of what I almost felt like that was. Whatever was down there was letting everybody know, hey, I'm not to be messed with.
Well,
so I don't know. We might have ran into an even bigger one that night if we had actually found it.
That's what I was getting ready to say. I was like, if this was a juvenile, it could have been around one of their dens. I've heard that they have like some sort of territorial dens, and if something gets in their way, like they will go out there and destroy, literally rip apart whatever is invading in their territory.
And what's real crazy is about 6 months ago, I talked with an elderly man that's from that area. That's where he grew up. And I kind of approached the situation, because whenever you talk to people like that don't know you from Adam or, stuff like that, you can't just be like, hey, I saw a werewolf in the woods. What do you think about that? You know what I mean? You got to kind of approach it better. And this guy had, he grew up out there. He'd been out there his whole life. And I just kind of asked him like, hey, can I talk to you and us just be 100 for a minute? And he goes, yeah. And I said, I saw something in Jackport in 2018. And I saw it. I saw it twice, and then my buddy had a real bad encounter with it. And I kind of explained it to him. I said, "Have you ever had anything like this happen?" And he just immediately, he goes, and it was crazy. He goes, "I can take you to where they live." And like when he said that, like just like it is right now, the hair on the back of my neck is standing up. And he goes, these things have been out there way before us. They're going to be out there way after us. And he goes, they keep to themselves. He said, just leave them alone. And like I said, that was, like I said, this was just very recently. I talked to this person, and that was just like the way he talked about them was so insane, because he talked about them as if, like I said, he talked about them as if they were almost neighborhood pets. How, like how casually he talked about them, it was almost as if everybody out there knew about them, and we were the outlanders for not knowing about them. And so, in the way he said it, there was obviously more than one. So I can't confirm or deny there was more than one, because in my mind, I only saw the one, and then obviously I saw the one a second time, but I don't know how far away I was. It was a good little distance away. I couldn't tell you how big it was. And then the one that he shot at and obviously shot, he said it was very similar to the one that when it crawled in there, he said it was very similar to the one we had saw that first day. And it also makes me think the one he saw was the same one that we saw together, because he's a big time snacker. Every time he sits in deer stands and stuff, he sits there, he has a pocket full of like gummy worms, gummy bears, Pop-Tarts, beef jerky. He's always sitting there eating. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was munching on something and this thing was just curious and came in there to see what he had. It smelt it. Right. So, and obviously with its head in his lap, that thing could have tore him a new one if it wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, even though, people are like, oh, well, you shot this thing and, this and that. And, I can't believe you would harm something that wasn't even trying to hurt y'all. But, I mean, one thing I tell people is like, be in my shoes. Be right there in the moment when this thing is right there, even if it ain't meaning you no harm. You're just going, if something scares you worse than you've ever been scared in your entire life, I mean, to say that you wouldn't do the same is almost crazy, even if you're nonviolent, even if you don't believe in killing or injuring stuff. The fact that, I mean, when you're so scared, you really believe you could die. I mean, the human body is going to react different for everybody, but I don't think there's too many people that would say I'm that far off.
Right. I don't even know how I would handle a situation again if I felt like life or death. Obviously, I'm going to choose my life over something else. So anyone in those situations, you got to do what you got to do to survive. Or
we were definitely, like, looking back at it, it was definitely silly of us to just go try to hunt something like that, I mean, just because we were scared to hunt it like that, because, we were just scared, that could be wrong. Yes, just try to hunt it down and kill it when it ain't bothering us. But also just remember, like, when something like that scares you that bad, I mean, and obviously, now at the time, neither one of us had kids, but it's like now it's like, I definitely don't want to take my kids in the woods where there's, something like that out there. But it's just one of them deals, like nobody died, but nothing died but a pack of coyotes. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just we might not ever know.
It's one of those things that it makes you question what's actually out there, and you want to. For me, I would love to be able to figure that out, but at the same time, I've talked to people that don't want to ever see these things again.
So here's how I rationally, because I'm not superstitious, and I'm not like I'm not like all the government's out to get me kind of person. This is how I rationalize it. This is how I rationalize it with my mind. So the science of a man turning into a wolf on a full moon or at any given time, there's no science there that can support that. But the idea of something that's been left alone in the woods and mutated or just grown and just became its own creature over time is very realistic. Because look at it this way. We have over 99% of the ocean that's never been seen by human eyes. When you want to get even scarier, right here in our own backyard, You got like 70% of like Yellowstone and Yosemite that's never been seen. There's 80 something percent of the Amazon that's never been seen. I mean, all the time right now in the world where, their scientists are discovering new species of bugs, new creatures. They're finding sharks in places they don't need, the sharks don't need to be. Like, there's stuff out there, so like, earlier I said Sasquatch, so I'll tell you right now, like, I know this sounds crazy. I'm not like a super believer in Sasquatch just because I haven't ever seen one, even though I'm from Oklahoma, and Sasquatch is everything here. I am truly the definition of seeing is believing. So like I used Sasquatch earlier as a reference for people because, people know that's, kind of, even though I'm not necessarily like a firm believer in Sasquatches. I know that, I've heard enough to know that would be like a Sasquatch behavior. So that's how I'm like rationalizing that. But so I'm not saying that Sasquatch isn't real. I've never seen one, but I've seen whatever this is. And, the community calls these things dogmen. And that's, to my mind, that's what I saw was, a dogman. Like I said, it was definitely upright, and it definitely was not a bear, and it was definitely real. And like I said, obviously in law enforcement, I pass drug tests quite often. I don't do any kind of drugs. The hardest drug I do is Tylenol, and I don't drink. I don't drink or do anything crazy. So I mean, like we just got drunk and went out and made this up one day.
Yeah, that's the one thing I don't understand when people say you were drunk or they're on drugs. Most people don't have the same hallucinations or drunken sightings if they're all on the same. You know what I mean? It doesn't work that way. That's not how someone's brain works. Where if I'm drunk, the person next to me who's also drunk is not going to hallucinate, see the same things that I am. Or if someone's doing some sort of a drug, the likelihood that you're hallucinating about the same exact thing is pretty small. So
yeah.
I don't get into the whole idea of when people blame that. That's just a cop out for me. People just trying to look for excuses to write it off.
But, like I said, it might sound crazy to people. Like I said, when I say that I'm not like a big believer in Sasquatch, but like, you can't be upset for people not believing something that they haven't seen. That's like, there's going to be a lot of people that, might listen to my story and say,
And
oh,
I
it's
just
crazy.
turn around and
but like I said, I don't ever call people crazy.
I was
that
done.
say they believe in
I wasn't dealing with
Bigfoot or
that.
believe in aliens. I just can't say 100% yes or no.
The
because I haven't seen
hypocrisy
them,
of the cult
if that
is
makes
one of the
sense.
things
No, I
The
that
only reason that I
turns
believe
me
in what
away
I've seen
the
now
quickest.
is because I've seen it. I was there for it.
When I turned my
And
headlights
it's one
on,
of them,
it
one day
turned
if I see
and
a
looked at
Sasquatch,
us.
I'm like, well, sure as hell, they're
And
real.
one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing
I'm
red.
just saying, it's hard for me to get on board with
I see an orb
with something I
of
haven't
light.
seen. That's how I
It
always
is
look
just
at it.
circling
Yep.
these
No, I
steps
completely
like
get
it is waiting for
We've
me.
been going on for about an hour though, so we're probably going to wrap this
And he
one up.
begins
But I
to
did
tell
have one
them,
more thing.
that he saw a
ask before we
UFO.
do.
They're basically
So
like,
you're
what are
going
you
out in the
talking
woods
about?
this weekend, and let's just hypothetically say you happen to see
That's
another
7
one
foot
of
up
these
on a
things.
tree,
How are you going
peeking
to react?
around it, and that's where I saw the
I'm
top of the
100%
muzzle,
honest with you. I
nose,
mean,
and the eyes. As soon
how
as
do
I
you
made
think of
eye
what- I mean,
contact with this thing, it
if
felt
I'm
like death.
if depends on how far. Let's just, for the politeness of all the viewers, it just depends on how far away it is.
I kind of thought you'd go that route with it, so. Well,
That's the most polite way
yeah.
I can say it. Is it just depends on how far away it is if I see it.
no, I completely get it. Well, Shadoe, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I'm glad you came on here and shared that with us tonight.
And I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yep, you have a good night, sir.
You too, buddy.
Bye-bye. If you would like to be a guest on Tinfoil Tales, remember to send an email to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com, or you can also go to tinfoiltales.com and go to the contact section. Just make sure to reach out and get a hold of me, and we will get something scheduled for a future episode. You can also find Tinfoil Tales on Facebook and Instagram. Just look for Tinfoil Tales Podcast. You can reach out to me that way too. Remember to share the show around. Word of mouth is the best way to help the show grow. And just remember, truth comes at cost. Are you willing to pay the price?